Hi, last week we talked about tempo, which is how fast a song goes, and I promised this week we would talk more about a little bit about time signature, which is how you count music. So when we're dancing or singing along, how you figure out where in the music to come in, especially with the dancing, where the measures are. So when we were talking about tempo, we talked a little bit about time signature, and what that is remember we talked about this before, where there's one number over another number at the beginning of a sheet of music, at the very top in the corner by where the first line of music is, the first stanza of music is. It'll have a little number right in it, two numbers, one over the other, the line. That's the time signature, and what that means is you're figuring out how many quarter notes, that's the one with the stick on it, how many of those fit in one measure or bar of music. That's where two straight lines are. And that's where you'll have the words written underneath it, one per note, one syllable per note, and each note is a different shape, or not shape really, but a different, some are ovals they're little circles that don't have anything in them. Some of them are filled in and have sticks on them. So we'll talk about that more later. But you kind of need to know that in order to know how to count music. For example, I did this backwards. There's a song that I'm going to play for you called Dreaming in Metaphors by Seal. And that song, it took me forever to figure out how to count that music. It'd have been a lot easier if I just looked at the sheet music and figured it out by the time signature. But no, I had to do it the hard way and figure out how to count it. So when we play that piece of music, you'll see what I mean. So there's, I've got examples for you of different time signatures. So the most common one is 4/4, which is called common time, 4/4 music. And sometimes it's C, because it's so common that they actually call it common time. And that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as dancers, we just kind of don't like counting fours for our dance steps. It's a little too complicated. We like to count in longer measures, longer groups than that. So usually we'll put two measures together and count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what's interesting is that in most music, you can hear where that one is. That's going to be harder for me to pinpoint for you as to how to do it. It'll come to you over time or with practice. Okay, so you'll see me stop and go, oh, okay, and I'll jump in when it's finally a 1 instead of a 5. Or I'm sorry, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 2 4-beat measures put together, right? So instead of starting you dancing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Well, that 5, 6, 7, 8 is always in the same every other place in the music. And like I said, it's a little bit harder to hear, but we're going to try. Okay. How you hear the 1 and that 5, that is a little more specific. The 1 is on what's called the downbeat of the music. That's the first beat of a measure of music. Now, sometimes what you'll hear, this is carried by usually the snare drum or the bass line, bass guitar, like Chance was playing for you guys a bass line last a couple weeks ago. So what that does is it sets a steady rhythm for the music in popular music or rock music, popular music. And so it becomes easier to hear where that 1 is because it's usually, there's something interesting on it. In one of the pieces of music that we're going to play, there's actually kind of an absence of something on the downbeat. So you kind of listen for that hole to happen. Now the word down doesn't have anything to do with that it's lower or quieter or harder. The word down simply means it's the first beat of the measure, and usually a conductor of a band or an orchestra, the guy who leads and keeps the tempo for everybody with his hands, he'll actually bring his baton down on the first beat of a measure. That's why it's called a downbeat. So all you're doing is you're listening for an kind of an oddly accented beat in the music that'll let you know that that's the 1. So like I said, we're going to go through several different time signatures. The first one is 3/4 time. That's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or as dancers, like I was saying with the 8s, we tend to prefer to count that in 6s. So we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, not to confuse you, but this is a little confusing to me as well. Sometimes that 3/4 signature can actually change into something called a 6/8 signature. And what that simply means is that the beats are kind of quick, and so it's easier to do a measure of music for the people playing it to see them grouped in 6s rather than in 3s. So for our purposes for right now, we're just going to call it 3/4 music because you can count it in 3s. Okay. Then the next one up from there is 5/8. And so that one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the next one up from there is 7/8. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's interesting because for the longest time I thought, and actually it can be written this way, but it's very confusing. Like I just said, you could do 3/4 time with a measure with only 3 notes in it, measure with only 3, measure with only 3. Well, with that kind of music, when it's in the 7, you could write it as 4/3, 4/3. But then people's heads explode and you can't have that. So generally speaking, they write that as 7/8 so that there's 7 beats per bar, 7 beats per measure. Okay, so I'm going to start playing some music for you, and I'm just going to, I don't know if I want to do one big long tape of this. So let's just call this the intro, and then I'll start playing the music.